Hey, this is Scott with the Scotch Test Dummies with a quick hitter on a sample we received from Claire. Thank you, Claire. On the Bruichladdich Octomore 7.3, bottled at 126 proof. Now, this is a 5-year-old heavily peated whiskey. The Octomore series from Bruichladdich are all heavily peated. The lowest, I believe, may even be in this range of the 7.3, which is 169 parts per million. This bottle is the 6.3, which me and Bart have reviewed the 6.1 and the 6.3. Now the 6.1 is also around 169 parts per million. The 6.3 comes in at 258 parts per million. The Octomore 7.3, like I said, is 169 parts per million, and it is also a 5-year-old Scotch. Same as the 6.3 and the 6.1. Now, I know there's other additions to the Octomore line. I don't know if they're all 5 years old or if there's different age ranges in there. I do know there is at least one of them that's a 10-year-old Octomore. And they are also getting ready to come out with, at the time, this one at 258 parts per million was the most heavily peated Scotch. Bruichladdich is coming out with a new one. I believe it's the 8.1, and it comes in at like 305 or 309 parts per million peat. Now, keep in mind, Laphroaig, Ardbeg, known as heavily peated Scotches, hit about the 50-55 parts per million range. So these are considerably more peated. So even though these are heavily peated in the 200, 100, high 100s, 200s, 300 parts per million, the peat doesn't necessarily override the taste buds. The Octomores that I've had have all, the 6.1 when we first tried it was surprisingly not as peaty as you thought it would be for 169 parts per million. The 6.3 at 258 parts per million is simply delicious. So let's get into this 7.3, and I have my notes here somewhere. The nose of the 7.3, of course, the peat is there, very heavy, a nice brininess, roasted peanuts. The peat is strong with this one. There is a nice citrus sweetness in there as well, and not like a some peated scotches that they're doing in cask finishing with the sherry come with a lot darker notes. I don't necessarily get that with this. It's more of a citrus, a light citrus like pears, apples, oranges. The taste brings in strong peat right on the forefront, but it's so, I don't want to say delicate, but just so really gentle at the same time, strong and gentle both. And at 126 proof or 63% ABV, neat, it's delicious. Now, one thing with this though, and that the Octomore line brings you, is you can add water. You can bring this down. And like I said, even at the 63 neat at 63%, it's really delicious. Just a splash of water. The peat and the alcohol is so warming but not overpowering. The water brings out more of that citrus sweetness, powdered sugar. I have honey in my notes as well. There's a hint of vanilla. You cannot tell the ABV on this is as high as it is. Salted, roasted peanuts is in there. Even more water keeps the flavor profile high and full. There's a sea salt, and herbal grassiness will start to come out with a little bit more water. And like I say, the peat is not harsh with this. Some peat almost like an IPA beer with the hops. Stays with you. This one, I mean, it has a good finish and it hangs in there, but then it's gone. It's not like a cigar that you've smoked and the taste is still there lingering. What this will do, though, for those that haven't heard, it does provide peat flashbacks. You can be at work a week from now. You're sitting there typing at the computer, and all of a sudden you go, I just tasted peat. It's happened to me a time or two. So this is, like I say, a sample from Claire. Thank you, Claire. Octomore 7.3, bottled at 126 proof. I'm going, not an exact score, but this is a 92, 93, somewhere in that range, low 90s, low to mid 90s. So thanks, Claire, for the sample. Appreciate it. And the Bruichladdich Octomore 7.3. See you, dummies.